In the middle of an underwater installation in the Atlantic Ocean, a group of explorers find a mysterious object at the bottom of the sea and decide to alert their superiors. In the control room, Dr. Julia watches the underwater recordings made by the team and is excited to see that they have finally found what they have been looking for so long. Far away, at a university in London, England, James arrives at the institution's research center and receives the news that there is a visitor waiting for him in his office. Arriving in his office, the man sees Dr. Julia and asks what she is doing there. The woman reveals that she works for the Pickman Corporation, the main company responsible for funding James's astrobiology research. What's more, she says she's happy to see that the man is following in his late father's footsteps, as he was a great researcher. However, James tells her that he doesn't intend to talk about all the discoveries his father has made, and orders her to buy one of his books if she wants to know more. When she hears this, Julia explains that it wasn't for this reason, but because the Pickman Corporation is gathering candidates for a new research project, which will be carried out on an expedition in the depths of the Atlantic Ocean. The woman reveals that her teams have been exploring those regions for the last 7 years, and a few months ago, they found a new area, which has the greatest depth ever seen by mankind. The doctor then shows the images collected by the explorers, and when he comes across the site, James is confused, saying that it seems to have been built by human beings. Despite this, Julia says that the object found could be a portal, and so that they can find out what they are dealing with, she says that they want to have the researcher as a participant in the expedition. So James decides to accept the invitation, and together they set off towards the headquarters of the Pickman Corporation. In the meeting room, Julia decides to introduce the new members of the exploration team to the researcher, so that they can all work together without any difficulty. The woman then introduces Gordon, the head of the laboratory, who will be responsible for leading the investigation. Shortly afterwards, the doctor talks about Christine, the marine biologist who can guide the team through the depths of the ocean. In addition, Julia says that the group will be able to count on the presence of Joseph and Hank, who will ensure that their companions are properly secured and that their communications are not interrupted. The woman then hands over the leadership of the meeting to Hank and asks him to explain about the submarine they will be using on their mission. Hank says that the submarine will be able to take the researchers to the entrance without any problem, but Christine is worried and asks why the corporation is so interested in that location. At that moment, Mr. Pickman, who has been watching the meeting all this time, appears and explains that that portal could be his greatest discovery. What's more, the old man says that the mysterious structure may not have been made by human beings, and if that's the case, they could find surprising things inside. The doctor then hands over the files with the data collected by her team to the candidates, and reveals that they will have to undergo intensive training for 2 months before setting off for the site. Before leaving, James is intercepted by Mr. Pickman, and the old man tells him that the researcher's father would be proud if his son took part in such an expedition. Later, the candidates eat together in the cafeteria, and despite feeling extremely worried about their safety, they decide that they will go ahead with the mission. 2 months later, at the corporation's base of operations in Antarctica, the researchers gather on the docks and together they set off in the direction of the submarine. In the control and communications room, Dr. Julia meets with her staff, who say that all the procedures have been carried out and the vehicle is ready for shipment. Inside the submarine, the group begins to inspect the interior of the place, and James is amazed by everything he is seeing. After that, Captain Gordon gets in touch with the communicators at corporate headquarters, while Hank seals the hatch alongside Mr. Pickman. Soon after, the pilot starts the submarine's ventilation systems, causing the surrounding pressure to start trying to compress the vehicle. Realizing that James is scared, Hank tells him that he doesn't have to worry, because if anything goes wrong, they will implode at supersonic speed, and they won't even know what happened. When everything was ready, the crew began to dive the submarine and began to descend hundreds of meters at very high speed. After a few seconds, they realize that they have reached a depth of 10,500 meters, and Gordon says that they will break the world record when they descend another 400 meters. In the diving ward, Hank passes on the instructions from the exploration cabin to James, but just then, Christine appears and asks her companions to come and see what they are seeing. The group then gathers in the navigation room, where they come across the gigantic entrance to the Macabre portal, which has colossal rocks surrounding it. Christine says that no kind of volcanic activity could have caused that kind of phenomenon, so the entrance was created by something mysterious. Wanting to discover the wonders hidden inside, the group decides to continue with their expedition, and Gordon begins to cautiously step through the portal. On the other side of the ship, Mr. Pickman is walking alone through the place, but at that moment, he notices a leak in one of the walls. Before the old man could warn his crew, the submarine began to collapse and went into alert mode. Desperate, the researchers try to stabilize the ship, but nothing seems to work, and soon afterwards, communication with the central station is interrupted by a macabre figure who lets out a deafening noise. To prevent them from being wiped out by the chain of incidents, Gordon activates the emergency power reserve, and Christine notices that even without the thrusters, the submarine continues to sink deeper and deeper. Despite this, Hank says that they must continue the mission alone, as they have lost their lines of communication and will not be able to return from now on. At the same time, Jospe decides to look for Mr. Pickman, and when he comes across his companion, the old man tells him that they have finally found what they were looking for. At this point, the ship's power comes back on, and after reconnecting with the center, Christine receives the news that they have had no response for the last 3 hours. Upon hearing this, the researchers are startled, and upon checking the submarine's life support, they discover that the site has a time deceleration, since for them, only a few seconds had passed. Soon afterwards, the communicators realize that they are not receiving images from the cameras, and after noticing that they are in front of an extremely macabre area, Gordon asks Christine to describe what they are seeing. The woman says that the decayed rocks in front of the submarine must be the size of mountains, and wonders how there could be living beings there, since sunlight would never reach this place. While exploring, the group notices a bizarre figure positioned on the ground, and they decide to get closer to understand what they are seeing. In doing so, the researchers realize that they are facing a new form of life, which has probably been buried there for centuries. At this point, Julia says that they need to study what they have just found, and orders James to go down to the site so that he can take a tissue sample. So the researcher gets into the exploration capsule, and after the launch is complete, he sets off in the direction of the abandoned creature. As he gets closer, James realizes that the living being has a body size larger than the Empire State, and decides to collect the samples as soon as possible. Meanwhile, the group wonders how a creature that size wouldn't have deteriorated over time, and before they can come to any conclusions, they realize that the monster has just moved. Shortly afterwards, Christine warns that she has spotted movement around James, but Joseph refuses to believe this, and orders the woman to remain silent, as they will only leave the site after the researcher has been collected. In the middle of the site, James reveals that the sample is safe, but his capsule systems suddenly fail, causing him to lose communication with his companions. At that moment, the living being gets up and the group is faced with a gigantic colossal creature, which lets out a deafening roar throughout the place. In the midst of the chaos, all the researchers fall into complete despair, and Mr. Pickman rushes away from the navigation room, but in doing so, he comes across a macabre illusion, which begins to talk to him. At the same time, Gordon asks for the mission to be aborted, but the doctor refuses and orders them to continue with their expedition and collect tissue samples from the monster. Desperate, the captain lets go of the navigation controls, and Joseph rushes to try to get the group out of that place, while Christine rushes to help Hank rescue James. However, this ends up making the situation even worse, and the submarine gets even closer to the colossal creature, which uses one of its hands to attack the vessel. Thanks to this, Joseph is thrown away, causing him to fall unconscious, and at the same time, Christine ends up falling into the hatch, which closes at the same moment, preventing Hank from coming to her aid. A few seconds later, James realizes that his thrusters are working again and starts to return to the ship, but Gordon tells him that he will have to wait because his companion is trapped in the hatch. As if they weren't already in enough danger, the captain notices that the submarine is starting to crack, and several places are suffering severe leaks. After using all his strength to reopen the blockade, Hank manages to rescue Christine with the help of his companion, and orders Joseph to try to resuscitate her while he assists the researcher in his return. Despite trying several times, the crew member is unable to bring the woman back to consciousness, and the pair are devastated to realize that they have just lost the first member of their group. At that moment, Gordon shouts for Hank to check the rooms of the ship, as he is detecting dozens of leaks, so they need to reduce the weight of the submarine immediately. So the man runs towards the rooms, and after finding Mr. Pickman unconscious in the middle of the path, he asks the old man to run towards the safe zone. Soon after, Hank discovers that one part of the submarine is full of water, and asks Gordon to drop as much weight as possible so that they can start climbing immediately. However, the captain says that they will have to wait until James returns, so there is nothing they can do but get a little further away from the creature. Due to the number of leaks, Hank ends up trapped inside the rooms and cries out for Mr. Pickman's help. As he approaches, the old man says that human beings are useless compared to those creatures, and will always be overwhelmed by the devastation they are capable of causing. After this, the old man watches Hank being submerged by the water, and decides not to press the button to open the doors, causing the crew member to be eliminated by drowning. Soon afterwards, James manages to get back to the boat and is desperate to see that Christine is no longer alive. Furious, the man scolds Joseph, who is watching in shock, and tries to perform a heart massage to help the woman. Within seconds, Christine regained consciousness and James was relieved to have been able to save his friend's life. A few minutes later, Joseph returns to the pair and reveals that Hank has been knocked out by the water, causing him to be trapped in one of the boat's rooms. Gordon then reveals that they only have 3 hours of life support left, and he's not sure if they have enough time to reach the surface. During the conversation, the box where the sample is stored begins to move, at which point Mr. Pickman meets with his team, saying that these are the gods of the deep. In addition, the old man orders Joseph to help him take the compartment to the submarine's laboratory so that they can isolate and inspect the monster's tissue. Concerned, Christine says that the creature may have lived for millions of years in the depths of the ocean, so they have no idea what they are exposing themselves to by opening the box. However, Mr. Pickman ignores the woman's warnings and tells her that they will have countless scientific discoveries with what they are about to do. Upon hearing this, Christine decides to go after the pair so that she can supervise them and make sure they don't do anything dangerous with the sample. In the laboratory, the old man discovers that the tissue is still alive, even after being removed from the creature, and upon hearing this, James tells them that they should keep the box so that they can inspect it at the corporation. Despite this, Mr. Pickman refuses to cooperate with this idea, and during the discussion, the group notices a macabre tentacle emerging from inside the sample. Quickly, Christine says that they should seal the thing in the lab as soon as possible, as the fabric seems to sense the presence of human beings around it. Irritated, the old man tells her that he is the one who is paying the woman to help him with his research, but the biologist maintains her position and asks James to remove Mr. Pickman from the premises while she covers the glass box. In one of the submarine's corridors, Joseph receives a call from Dr. Julia, at which point it is revealed that the young man is nothing more than a greedy mercenary. During the conversation, the man assembles his firearm and says that he will ensure that the sample is delivered to his superior, as they will be able to keep all the profits from this scientific discovery. While analyzing the damage to the submarine, Mr. Pickman finds the laboratory room open, and realizes that the sample has managed to escape from the containment box. The old man then enters a state of bizarre hypnosis, causing him to remove his protective overalls and walk towards the fabric, without even realizing that he is being watched by a mysterious figure. As he approaches, Mr. Pickman touches the sample with his bare hands and begins to smear the creature's goo all over his body, driving him increasingly mad. In the navigation room, Gordon tries to communicate with the corporation's central office, but at that moment, he begins to hear several recordings of former crews, which leave him terrified. Soon afterwards, the captain is surprised by the macabre figure, causing him to scream desperately. Hearing Gordon's panic, the pair of researchers rushed to his aid, but before they could reach him, Christine realized that the door to the laboratory was open. Frightened, the woman tries to operate the doors to lock the place again, but the panel is full of the creature's goo, and she runs to alert her friend. Just then, the pair come across Mr. Pickman, and after letting out a deafening roar in their direction, he leaps towards the water through the hatch. Desperate, James tries to reopen the exit with an emergency axe, but before he can rescue the old man, they are surprised by Joseph, who points his gun in their direction. Trying to understand why the crew member is acting so aggressively, James tries to convince him to rescue Mr. Pickman, but the man says that this is no longer possible, as the pressure would wipe them out in an instant. Joseph then explains about the old man's madness, and the researcher realizes that the man has known about the creature's existence for all this time. When he hears this, the mercenary tells him that the real purpose of the corporation was to collect something they had found 7 years ago in Antarctica, so that they could get rich from the scientific discovery. However, Christine says that this won't be as easy as it seems, because the creature is growing bigger and bigger, and is even capable of dominating the minds of the crew. Despite this, Joseph decides to go ahead with his plan, and the woman declares that if he is eliminated on his mission because of her, she will make him suffer more than any other survivor. Even with all those threats, the man decides to ignore his companions and heads to the laboratory, where he collects various parts of the sample with his bare hands. The pair then rush to Gordon's aid, but when they reach the ship, they find the captain possessed by the creature. Frightened, James orders the man not to approach them, but the crew member doesn't seem to be in control of his actions, and walks towards the researcher while talking in an extremely macabre voice. Gordon then attacks his companion, and after disarming him, the captain throws him towards the railing, causing him to lose consciousness. Soon afterwards, the possessed man begins to strike the vessel's control panels, causing the control center to lose communication with the submarine. Hearing Christine's cries of despair, Joseph goes to find out what's going on, and noticing that James is unconscious, he rushes to the navigation room. Quickly, the mercenary shoots Gordon repeatedly, causing the captain to be knocked out by his wounds. Desperate, Christine screams for Joseph to stop shooting, but the man says that there is nothing more that can be done and that they will all go down together. Trying to defeat her enemy, the woman picks up the axe from the ground and strikes the man in the back, allowing her to kick the firearm towards James, who wakes up instantly. Furious, Joseph lunges at Christine, who tries to defend herself in terror, causing some of his maneuvers to hit Gordon's body. The woman then manages to knock her opponent down and stuns him with a large wound to his leg. After crawling alone next to Gordon's body, Joseph notices a tentacle emerging from his captain's chest and begins to feel extremely terrified. Now that they have a chance to escape, Christine runs over to James, and after helping him up, they use the firearm to release the chains on the exploration pod. However, the researcher orders his friend to go alone for the time being, as he needs to stay on the submarine to incinerate the sample and prevent the corporation from finding the monster's tissue. Without wasting any time, James sets fire to the pieces of the creature, and after shooting them repeatedly, he closes the laboratory. The researcher then notices a mysterious figure watching him in the corridors, at which point he receives a call from Joseph, who laughs uncontrollably as he says they are about to implode. With that, James meets with Christine and orders her to leave alone, as he will need to stay to seal the blockade. Desperate, the woman begs her friend not to do this, but suddenly the pair are surprised by Joseph, who manages to disarm the survivor with his axe. James quickly manages to make a surprise attack on his opponent, but he ends up being easily stunned by the traitor, who is preparing to eliminate him. At the last second, the researcher manages to retrieve his firearm, allowing him to fire a powerful blast at Joseph, who falls to the ground instantly. After getting up, James retrieves his axe and realizes that a tentacle is emerging from the body of the crew member, who begins to scream in despair, causing the survivor to decide to finish him off out of mercy. Realizing that they don't have much time to escape the ship, the researcher runs back to the exploration pod room, and after closing the hatch, he opens the pressure lock. Thanks to this, Christine reaches the outside safely, and while waiting for the submarine to implode, James begins to hear the voice of his perished father, and decides to follow the source of the sound. Noticing that his son has finally joined him, the man asks him to accompany him into the depths, so that together they can explore the immensity created by the monstrous creatures. 2 days later, Christine wakes up in a hospital room and is greeted by Dr. Julia, who says that all the other crew members have been eliminated in the submarine. The woman also reveals that they were only able to find her thanks to the signal from her exploration capsule, allowing them to reach her before her oxygen levels reached zero. Furious, Christine screams that Dr. Julia was responsible for the elimination of everyone on her team, since she was fully aware of where she was sending those innocent people. However, the woman says that even she didn't get what she wanted, as the sample was destroyed along with everything else on the submarine. In the midst of the argument, Christine begins to squirm desperately, and when she remembers that she touched the creature's goo with her bare hands, she becomes enraged, saying that Julia has gotten what she wanted. At that moment, dozens of macabre tentacles emerge from inside the woman's stomach, and she screams more and more as her body is destroyed from the inside out. In a few seconds, the woman's despair begins to turn into macabre madness, causing her to laugh uncontrollably. Thanks to this, Dr. Julia realizes what a big mistake she has just made, since from now on, the gods of the deep have managed to reach the surface, and can finally begin their reign of terror against humanity. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.